Next to me is the Specialized Venge ViAS of a certain world champion named Peter Sagan. Now you might be wondering why we are profiling this one and not that rather stunning design with all the World Championships rainbow band colours and the glittery gold in the paint. And the reason is that it's actually this one that we understand he's going to be using for the majority of the time when he's not on his tarmac. Reason being that although stunning, that extra paint does add quite a lot of weight, over 100 grams actually. And so on the rolling stage at least, he will be using this one, and he'll only use the other one if it's almost completely pan flat. Now we first saw this model from Specialized this time last year at the start of the 2015 Tour de France, and they have undergone a small amount of changes. The first one is this, which actually is not being used on Sagan's bike. It's the ability to have the cables externally until this point of the frame. And the reason for that is that some riders, Marcel Kittel being an example, like to use a standard stem and bars so that the shape of the bars around here is exactly the same as on their tarmac bike. Sagan, meanwhile, actually does have a different bar shape here versus the one that he's got on his tarmac, but he simply doesn't mind. I understand it is far more aerodynamic in the setup that they've got. So as you can see, there are no bare cables at all. The cables go from the shifters and the brake levers here, through the bars, through the stem, and then down through here. And you'll notice that the stem is completely horizontal. To get that, it's negative 17 degrees. And that's all they've got. It's always negative 17 degrees because in the wind tunnel, they found out it was significantly faster if it was horizontal and parallel with the ground. So you've got two options if you buy this bike and you want to go slightly higher. The first is to change out those aero handlebars to ones that go up slightly. That will give you an extra 25 millimeters in height. And the other one is to change the size of this stack between the stem and the frame itself. And actually Sagan is using that to make sure he's in the same position. Reason being that the stem over on his tarmac is a negative 12 degrees. And so normally he'd be slightly lower on this, but they've given him slightly more in terms of the size of this to make sure he's in exactly the same position from that point of view. Specialized have also done a lot of work here at the brakes, and you can't really visibly see any difference, but you might remember that last year a certain high profile rider that was using it didn't like the brakes at all. So they've been working on improving the bushings and the springs in them so that they stay smoother for longer, they've got a more positive feel, slightly easier to pull the brakes on, and they also stand up to bad weather conditions and washing a lot more so the mechanics don't have to change the cables as much. Now they've also got two different sizes of brake pad shoe. Reason being that there are different widths of rim these days, and that allows the mechanics to make sure that the cantilever part of the brake here is optimally positioned so it's in line with the frame and in line with the forks to make it as aerodynamic as it possibly can be. Now the good news for the consumer is that this is exactly the same frame set as you can buy. The bad news for Peter is that there's far less in the way of rainbow bands, just this small sticker here. And then of course his wheels, which are Roval, a division of Specialized. At the moment he has the CLX 64s in, which as you can see are really rather deep. And he's got Specialized tubular tyres put on them at the moment, 25 millimeters in width. Now, as I said, it is quite a long stem, 15 centimeters in length. That gives them a reach from the tip to the center of the bars of around about 60 centimeters, or 78 if you measure to roughly where he's sitting. And his saddle height is just a little bit over 76 centimeters from the center of the cranks up towards the top of the saddle where he sits, on a 56 centimeter frame. Now he's running satellite shifters, which he likes to use when he's sprinting, and he's also got a really neat looking SRM mount there on the front of the Specialized S-Work stem. I really like that. He has a full Shimano Dura Ace Di2 group set with those satellite shifters. 11 to 28 is the size of his cassette, and at the front there it's 39 by 53. 172.5 millimeter cranks with an SRM power meter. Now, saddle is provided by Prologo. It is a custom design in terms of its looks, but not in terms of its shape. Underneath the saddle is this seat post, of course, but it's the other option when it comes to your position on the bike. So Specialized offer different amounts of layback in terms of how far back this bolt is. Anything from 0 all the way to 35 millimeters, and Sagan here is running one that has a 20 millimeter layback. Tacks provide the carbon bottle cages, and the one thing that I forgot to mention earlier is the width of his bars, 42 centimeters from center to center, so not as narrow as a lot of riders these days are riding. Now it's time to weigh the bike. How much does a bike this aerodynamic actually weigh? Let's take it off the stand. 7.895, so not too far off 8 kilograms. So it is still reasonably heavy by modern road bike standards, at least for professional riders. And that is why he will choose to use the tarmac once the roads really start getting hilly. Right, one more thing which I didn't mention before, Ceramic Speed have got their bearings inside the hubs, inside the bottom bracket, and they've also provided the jockey wheels down there at the bottom as well, which is why they look a bit different. Oh, and the grip tape, not sure exactly who provides it, but it's certainly got a unique feel. It's almost sticky, certainly very rubbery. Now, if you would like to see a lot more pro bikes, we must have done hundreds by now here at GCN. We've got them all in one handy playlist. I'm just going to move slightly out of the drips. It's all in the top corner just up there. Our entire Tour de France playlist, meanwhile, is down there in the bottom corner. And if you're new to the channel, if you've not yet subscribed, it's free to do so, and all you've got to do is click on the globe.